November, December, January, and then. Well, that's good. That's good to know. So, again, be patient. We're still kind of combing through the budget. So, certainly, we base all of our numbers on current enrollment, but as we've talked about, really, it's really countywide, almost statewide, our regular ed are, some of our numbers are decreasing, but certainly our special ed numbers are increasing. And that's really that's pretty typical of all districts. We'll be proposing that we're going to a vote under capital project planning. Our facilities committee is meeting, and we are hopefully going to a vote next December for a capital project, and then to talk about the future of this building. And certainly our main goal is to maintain fiscal stability. That's always been the goal. That's the board goal that was adopted back over the summer. To maintain that fiscal stability, and we're going to be talking about it later in the presentation, we can be very careful with fund balance. We're going to be reviewing over, kind of the history of the fund balance we've used, and you have to be very careful not to use too much fund balance. And of course, staying within the tax levy cap, that changes. That is still changing based on the numbers from the governor. Right now, it's about 4.1%. Okay. Emery?
Yeah. Okay, so some of our budget considerations and challenges that we're facing, every year we have state aid. And this year they're looking at, so far we have a 1% increase in the foundation aid from the governor's proposal. And this just is not enough to sustain our district. We have increases in our budget that are much higher than this 1% increase. Our tax levy cap is also a consideration. Budget increases that we've been seeing in the past few years make it very difficult to stay within the tax levy cap. CPI is projected to be 2.7 to 2.9%. Again, we're seeing increasing expenditures because of that. And our enrollment, as you know, has been declining historically in the past few years. Staffing and benefits make up 80% of our district budget, as well as other budgets throughout the state. And we have limited control over this section of the budget. So that also is a challenge. And we have BOCES expenditures, just as we have increasing costs, so do BOCES. And those costs are passed on to all the participating districts. Curriculum and programs, we'll talk about that more when we do the instructional side of the budget in March, and as well as the special education. But as Mr. Bon Jovi mentioned, we continue to see growing needs in this area of our budget. Our facilities are in need of a large capital project to upgrade our facilities and get work completed. Technology, we want to continue to replace our technology every 5 years. And for debt service, this year we're actually proposing bus bonds to purchase 5 new buses, and we'll talk about that further on in the slideshow. And of course, the favorite unfunded mandates, we don't know what is going to come up. So the non-instructional section of the budget is made up of 8 sections. They're listed up above. The Board of Education areas where we would find the expenses for the board, such as board doc software, and also the annual vote costs are also included in the board section. Central administration is where you'll find all the expenditures for the superintendent and his administrative assistant. And then for finance, we have the business office, auditors, the financial advisors, and all the expenditures for the office. Staff and personnel is where you'll have the human resources department, and under staff is where you'll find the legal expenses for the school district and our communications expenses. Central services is actually our courier and our data, which includes our servers and our data person in the central office, and our buildings and grounds department. Special items, we have a few things that fall under special items. You have the district-wide insurance, which covers theft, liability, and fire insurance. Dues, these are district dues. That would be like, for example, the Mid-Hudson School Study Council dues that we pay. And then you have your judgments and tax refunds that we must pay out based on tax certiorari's and that liability. And then our BOCES, admin, capital, and rent fees, these are considered under special items, rather than you'll see in the budget, we have all the other BOCES kind of sprinkled throughout depending on what type of expenditure it is. So, but these in particular are always under special items. And then we have our pupil transportation. And then undistributed includes employee benefits such as workers' compensation, your retirement, your health and your dental insurance, and FICA. Debt service is self-explanatory, all your bond principals and interest. And then interfund transfers. Interfund transfers, we have three. We transfer money to the lunch fund to help support the program. But we're also looking at that 5-year replacement plan for our equipment. What we don't do in the proposed capital project, we should really look at, because we have very old aging equipment that is breaking down. So we have to have a plan to replace that. So that is where that transfer will most likely go in the future, because we are doing well with the free meals for all. When we do the reimbursement, we have seen a profit in the lunch fund. So we'll cover that more as we finalize the budget moving forward. The federal fund, we do transfer about $200,000 to the federal fund, and that is for the 20% of the costs for our special ed summer program. The state reimburses us for 80%, and we have to fund 20% of that. And then last but not least is the third one, which is our capital transfer. And next year, we're proposing to do some work on the high school roof that needs replacing. We may end up doing it in 2 phases if the costs are too high. So I've taken those 8 sections of the non-instructional budget, and you can see the budget that we currently have this year and the proposal for next year, the dollar change and the percentage change. Most of the lines here include increases based on contractual obligations for salary increases. Other than undistributed, there are salary increases throughout. Actually between special items and undistributed, excuse me. So in the Board of Education, there is a 11% change, which sounds high, but $11,000 is the dollar amount in a $45 million non-instructional budget. That is a small number. What the driver is here is due to the second vote that we will have to have. Besides your annual vote in May of next year, we also have to put up the capital project, and we are shooting for a goal of December. So in essence, our expenditures will be double because of that. Central administration, some contractual items are the drivers in here. Finance, we are budgeting for additional fees for our financial advisor. Because of that capital project, they will be helping us with determining the amounts of bonding that we will have to do, whether they be bands, which are bond anticipation notes, or bonds. And we've also proposed to do some work with Ed Data, and that is a group that does bidding. They actually do the bidding for us for a number of items for services and supplies. There's a lot of districts throughout the county, multiple counties, that are using them, and they're seeing a significant savings. So we're hoping to also reap the rewards of that. I know just with the copy paper alone, I want to say the savings is up to $30,000 a year. And I'm looking at James because he helped to fund this service for us, because we needed to use a vendor in there, because they also have services for the rigging, different things for stage rigging and whatnot. So there's a long list, but anyway, that's a driver in here. For our staffing, the driver here is the bond counsel. This is, remember, where your legal fees are. So if we have a capital project that passes, we will need to use the services of bond counsel. And then for central services, in the contractual line is where you'll see the driver for this. Again, in addition to salary increases throughout the budget, I'm just also focusing on the other drivers. And we will be having a contract for the CJ Hooker controls, which we put in the summer, and that would be through Train. That is the driver here. Special items. NYSER, again, is projecting an increase of about 12%. So our district-wide insurance will be increasing overall 12%, and then the average is 9%. Pupil transportation. In here, we do have insurance as well through NYSER for our buses and for our building, the garage, and that is the driver here for the increase for transportation. Undistributed for benefits, we were projecting a 7% increase in health insurance right now, but those rates will be finalized in 2 weeks, so that could go down. I'm hoping, I don't anticipate it to go up any further than that. fingers crossed that it will be going down. Our FICA will increase because our salaries have increased overall. Retirement rates, we did have some increase in the employees' retirement system, whereas the teachers' retirement system, actually, the rate decreased there. And then in debt service, our driver here is for the bus bonds, should that proposition pass. And I'm projecting no increase in interfund transfers. So overall, our total percentage change is 5.4% or $2.2 million. And if you compare it with the 25-26 increase, that was 4.8% or $1.9 million. And just looking at the increase for the bus bonds, if you take that away, we're right in line with where our increase would have been without that for last year. And here is a visual of the 8 sections of the budget and what makes up the different parts of the budget in percentage. Our undistributed is where the 64% is, and that's the largest part, and that's due to benefits, because benefits makes up the undistributed section of the budget and the most of it. The smallest section is the Board of Education, and that's 0.25%. And then the second largest is Central Services, which is 15.9%. I don't know why they didn't come to you. They're kind of shifted all around. So here's our budget summary by specific codes. Throughout any budget, you'll see different expenditures, and these are the ones you will find in the non-instructional side. When I present the instructional side of the budget, we'll have some other additional items such as textbooks and software and services for students, but this is what you will find in the non-instructional side. And what the drivers here are, again, the salaries or contractual obligations due to contracts that have already been negotiated, but we also are proposing to change one of our custodians. We have a custodian who works 6 hours per day and isn't able to work for us during the summer. So we would like to increase that to a full-time position. So it ends up being 0.25 of a custodian on step 1. And overall, that's a $22,000 increase in that position. And it just gives James and staff more time to have somebody in the summer working that's a full-time custodian, knows the building, knows what the needs are. It'll help us to streamline and get more things done, especially in the summer. Our equipment, we would like to leave level for next year with a 0% increase. Contractual services, the driver here again is the CJ Hooker Controls, the contract with Train. We also have the legal fees for the bond counsel and the financial advisor fees. Those 2 items are both for the proposed capital project. Now, those are items that we typically start out in the general fund, and if there is enough room in the capital project to move that back from the general fund to the capital project, we can do that, or we could just keep them in the general fund, because the aid on those items is not as great as the work to be done in buildings. It's a different aid ratio. Supplies, we have a minuscule increase here, largely in the transportation and the buildings and grounds department. All of the other supplies throughout the budget have been left flat. Our BOCES services, the drivers here, we do have some increased rates throughout the different BOCES service requests and costs. We do have some new software that we're looking at for streamlining forms, so we can actually reduce the amount of time spent, especially on payroll and forms. She'll have forms this high to process every payroll. If we could do it similar to like our requisitioning system, where it's initiated and it goes to the principal or the director, and then it goes through the process for approval, it'll make things go a lot smoother and cleaner. And then under other, again, this driver in here is our benefits, the bus bonds, the health insurance benefits, and the ERS retirement. And there's the pie chart. I don't know why that, does it look like that on your screen too?
No. Okay.
No? Okay. I heard a no one. Okay, good. Okay. Sorry, it's supposed to show the different percentages and whatnot.
I'll move on.
Okay. So here's a summary of the major changes in the proposed budget. And we have ERS, that's the employee retirement system. The overall increase is 19%. And on the flip side, though, on the teachers' retirement system, we have a decrease of 1.3% with an overall change of 4.9% decrease. Health insurance, again, I'm projecting a 7% increase, and for Medicare, 3%. Medicare is a reimbursement that we make to retirees that are on our insurance plan. The tax collection salary, we have proposed to make a change on this, so I was able to decrease the salary, and we'll discuss that further with the board at a later date. District insurance, again, I'm looking at a 12% increase from NYSER. Interest on the bonds, typically interest on bonds do decline as you pay them over time. There you have BOCE services, their rates, and some software. BOCE services are also declining in other areas like that. For instance, last year I projected the Medicaid assistance from state aid planning would be closer to $20,000, whereas it's actually 12. So whenever we get that actual number after an estimate, I always either increase or decrease it. And in this case, it went down. And then salaries, they're contractual obligations, as well as the change in the custodian to 0.25 additional FTE. And then the bus purchases, which we're proposing to purchase 5 new buses to replace 15 or greater old buses. Oh. Okay,
That's good. That's
it's
good.
me.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
So the unknown factors in the proposed budget for the non-instructional side as of this date, the final tax levy cap, that's due on February 27th. So I'll have a better number for you when we present the instructional side of the budget in March. The final state aid numbers, I'm hoping to get another 1% in foundation aid, although it's not a great amount, but $210,000 will help. The high school roof replacement costs, the scans are done, but we're waiting for an estimate as to how much that could cost us. Our final health insurance rates, they'll be finalized within the next 2 weeks, and any potential unfunded mandates that may come out with the finalized state budget. And there's just a summary of the non-instructional budget comparison. And again, last year, our change was 4.8% as compared to this year. Okay.
Okay, so we're also proposing some vehicle purchases. So we want to give you an overview of what we have. So as you can see, we have, I won't read through it, but you can see the 65 passenger buses, then the 20 to 30 passenger, the wheelchair, 7 passenger Suburban. So we have a total of 90 vehicles with 4 spare. Now keep in mind, the general rule, the lifespan of a bus is 10 years. With school buses, there's a very strict DOT regulations on these, and just so the public understands, if a bus can't have any rust. So while, some of our cars might have little showing here and there, and we get it fixed. Once there's rust on the bus, that's it. You can't have rust. It's not going to pass DOT. So as you can see on the right side there, about 26% of our fleet is beyond the 10 years. So you can see 11 to 14, there's 14 buses, and then there's 7 buses that are 15 years or older. Okay, and then still 60 between that time. Also, mileage, sometimes, some buses might be newer but have a lot of mileage because these are our trip buses. And again, so it's not an exact science, but usually with mileage, the average life is a bus is maybe 150,000 miles. Sure. So we have buses with we have 12 buses kind of all in that cusp of the life. Just some things to understand. So that's what we do. We have a lot of runs. So there's 55 routes that we do. A lot of athletic trips you can see. It's fantastic. All those field trips that we're taking our students on. You can see that the number of students we transport regularly, 2,600 students. Understand, so that's 1 million miles plus each year that our buses drive. So that would be the equivalent of driving around the world 41 times in a school year. 41 times around the world with a lot of kids behind you. That would be tough for anyone. Our proposition, you can see, so this lists the bus number, the capacity of those buses, and then, what we choose to replace. I wanted to note, so bus number 247, you can see that bus is a little bit more expensive. That's 164,000. So that's our sports trip bus. So that bus has a lot of extra storage on it for all the equipment and whatnot. So that bus is a little bit more money. Then you can see we have two 30-passenger buses that we're currently using. We're going to replace those because those buses are being used for much smaller amount of students. It's just that's what we have, so we're using them. So we're going to be replacing them with 7-passenger vehicles. So that's why those last two jumped down to the 61,000. It's tough. You got to keep up on the buses. I know we went a couple of years there where we weren't buying vehicles, but again, when you skip years of buying vehicles, it catches up with you, and eventually you have to buy vehicles. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to express that this is still a work in progress. Our projected revenues are based on the governor's budget as well as maximum tax levy cap, which at this point in time is 4.1%. Our projected budget is $102 million, leaving us with a budget gap of $6.2 million. Now we can also propose appropriated fund balance and reductions as well. We don't know what those will be. They are to be determined. Historically, we have used fund balance. And
Yes, we talked.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. We talked about this a little bit at our first presentation. So again, fund balance, optimum, I think you can ask any business official, you'd love to be about 950,000, 180,000 of fund balance. So we were that for a lot of years, as you can see. So 5 years prior to 2021, we were at 980, and then, things happened. And you can see we were still at 921.22, but then we went to 1.2, back to 9, 1.1, and then last year, 3.7 million. That's a lot. I understand. I was not here. I understand why the board decided to do that, but just for the board, for the public, that's not sustainable. We do have fund balance, but we wouldn't be able to continue with that large of amount over the next couple of years. You want to jump in?
Sure. Okay. So this slide may look familiar to you. We did show it back in October when we did our financial planning presentation, and it shows the historical tax levy versus the tax levy cap and the percentage in each year, the change of what it was between the prior years. The amount that the tax levy cap was at and the amount of the actual tax levy and that difference. And as that difference continues to grow when you don't use or go up to the actual maximum levy, those are the dollar figures in the last column. That's the cumulative difference over the past 10 years of what was not collected by not going to the cap. And it's totaling $6.1 million, which does almost come out to the amount of our budget gap at this time.
Again, we covered this back in the, so this is going to be a year of some tough decision as far as the, going to the cap. So really, if you just go back to, and I'm not laying blame on anyone. It is what it is. But you can see 2021 and forward, those 4 years, we were at 0, 0, and then 1 and 2, when we could have been much higher. Just those 4 years is $4.7 million of money that we kind of left on the table. So again, this year we're at about 4.1 right now. That's
Yes.
going to fluctuate a little bit, and I would say, we have a lot of things that we need. We have a lot of things we need to maintain. That the goal of the board should be. You got to go to that tax cap. As always, our mission statement, I won't read it. I'll leave it there for a second. And then, of course, finally, if anyone in the public has any questions, comments. So there's still a lot of time. There's still, a lot of numbers we don't know, but we're not making these numbers up. We want to be fully transparent just to show the board, the public, this is where we are right now on February 9th. And again, we're not adopting until April. Okay.
Any questions?
I just have a question about the insurance rates. So you mentioned especially with transportation that they went up, well, contributing to $346,000 increase. Do we know the driver of that, or we research whether is there different insurance companies? Is there any kind of driver training programs that could help bring that down? And why are we going up so quickly?
And that's throughout the state. It's even at home. I don't know if you've noticed, I know our homeowners went up, our car insurance went up. But with school districts in particular, we have had multiple meetings with NYSER, and I know Utica also has had meetings with their districts as well, because they're seeing increases. It was because of the law that passed, I'm not sure how many years ago, where prior students could come and sue school districts for, for misconduct per se of employees. I'm just trying to remember what the law was. So it opened up, I want to say Pandora's box, where a lot of claims came in from many years ago for large amounts of money, and they've had to settle, and that has just wreaked havoc on the insurance industry, as well as the many disasters, so to speak, that we've had. Just thinking about when they had the floods over in Highland Falls, roads were washed out, and all of the things that had to be repaired, not just for the schools, but also, just the surrounding areas as well. Those have driven all of the rates of insurance up in general. And we could do an RFP and go out and get new rates, but I am concerned with, you get that great rate the first year, but then in the following years, what's going to happen? Is it going to go up as high as what we are paying now? That's the problem. So, they can go by our experience rating, which isn't terrible. I know that, but I just know in general, it's not us in particular for the rate increases. It's throughout different districts that use this insurance throughout the state.
Are you able just to maybe put feelers out to the other districts to see what they're doing and get a gauge whether it be,
We have talked about it at business official meetings, and they're in the same boat, and they're also in the same thought process of not going out to do an RFP because they're afraid of rates going too high the following years, like year 2, year 3. So, we could certainly do that next year and give it a try.
Okay.
It's an option. Yeah. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So a lot of great information. We've come a long way. We still have quite a ways to go. So again, stay positive, and we'll continue to keep great communication with the Board of Ed and the public. So that is everything on my report. I know that I don't want to steal your, so I think that was Ms. Bamford Lambert's report also. So we can jump right to Dr. Carter.
Great. Thank you. All right, very good. So we'll pass over that one. It's Dr. Carter, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Personnel, and Technology Report.
Thank you, Mr. Loftus. Good evening, everyone. So I do have a few items for you this evening, beginning with UPK regarding registration. So the registration for UPK did close on Friday the 6th. Currently, we have 74 students registered. We do have a few with some outstanding documentation, but we fully anticipate 74. So if you recall, we do have a proposal on the table for 54 seats in-house. And we also have a second proposal from the same vendor for an additional up to 54 seats at the vendor's location. So I thought that I would just mention, of course, we understand what the allocation has been and what, as of last month, the anticipated allocation was. However, I know that everyone, for the most part, is aware of Governor Hochul's messaging, according to her most recent budget proposal, looking to move that funding to $10,000 per pupil beginning next school year, potentially in the proposal. And so that kind of opens up a different window. However, I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen or not. It's just something to be aware of. And I know that we have some further discussion to have regarding which direction we wish to travel for UPK. And so just keep in mind that increase potentially could be from $5,752 to $10,000 per pupil, which very well may up the potential for seats potentially to 174, 175 or more. So that's just food for thought. Also just want to remind everyone that along with the proposal is the idea of a truly universal pre-K for all beginning in the 28-29 school year. We were very fortunate this evening to have some great presentations, one of which was Kim Longo regarding the performing arts. So make sure you put those magnets on your vehicles and around home or office. We're very proud of our programs here. I think it's very evident for years and years. We've been very proud. Our students are wonderful. Our teachers do a great job. Mrs. Longo, she did mention the NAM application for the best communities in music education. And so she did assist me with that this year, and I wanted to publicly thank her for all of her hard work. It's a very, very large document. There's a lot of information, and she assisted in gathering all of that, a lot of statistics, and a lot of talk about exactly what we're doing within the community. She had mentioned that it was submitted, and so it was submitted on the 25th of January, and she also mentioned that we've been a recipient for as far back as she can remember. And so as far back as I found, it began in 2017, and we've received the Best Communities in Music Education Award every year thereafter. So we're hopeful that we'll continue to do so with a wonderful program. And I also wanted to thank Mrs. Palucki and the entire art department for putting together a wonderful presentation. I wanted to talk a little bit about Orange Ulster BOCES and the Portrait of a Graduate Consortium. So in talking with Dr. Lang and Dr. LaFaro at Orange Ulster BOCES, they are in the process of putting together a consortium of component districts to assist districts in developing curriculum in alignment with the Portrait of a Graduate. And so the idea is that there will be an area of focus in professional development and of course the development of inquiry-based units across the content area. And so regarding the professional development, 4 areas of focus: inquiry-based teaching and learning, so more on the practice side and more on the learning side. And then also the development of those inquiry-based units, which is really important because within those 6 elements of the Portrait of a Graduate, we talk about critical thinking and creative innovation, and those are 2 huge components, and an inquiry-based learning across content areas really lends to that. And so we also will discuss research-based assessments and the use of technology, all geared toward Portrait of a Graduate. Just want everyone to realize that as it stands today, we're still waiting on more solid guidance from the New York State Education Department regarding the Portrait of a Graduate, but we're fully aware of the anticipated implementation guidelines, beginning with the financial literacy components. But as I had said, we do have, we're waiting on more information, and we're fully aware that that freshman cohort, 2930, is really the cohort that is fully impacted by the Portrait of a Graduate. As it stands today, everything that we're used to by way of graduation measurement stands, and we'll continue our work in preparing for alternative pathways and so on. Wanted to mention the math committee textbook review, and so I'm working with our principals right now in our K-6 buildings, and so obviously that's Scotchtown, GIS, and CJ Hooker, to look at putting together a committee of those interested in vetting a couple textbook programs and some curriculum from multiple vendors in alignment with next-gen standards for mathematics. And that's really important to us because if you recall, we do have Math in Focus, the 2020 edition, and so that it is a version of Singapore Math, but in my experience with that, the feedback, especially by way of professional development, and let's say it being user-friendly, the feedback has not been the best. And so with that being a program with a copyright of 2020, I think it's appropriate to look at something that is much more recent to the tune of 2024, 2025. There's also a vendor or two with some materials from maybe 2022, 23 that are preparing to release a new program. And so we're going to take a look at 5 or 6 programs, try to whittle it down and see what may work the best for us and what we're trying to achieve here, which of course is everything in alignment with standards focused on student performance in the area of mathematics. I will keep you informed all the way through. Right now, as I had said, the administrators are working on putting that committee together. Wanted to talk a little bit about the Stop DWI Foundation of New York. And so through an application process and the hard work of Mr. Pantaleone and his team at GHS, we were selected to be a host site of the International Save a Life Tour this spring. So this is a really unique opportunity. Of course, it's not something that's given to everyone nationwide. This will provide a hands-on experience with a lot of simulations, simply to prevent driving while under the influence or while intoxicated, which I think in the springtime is really important, especially as we enter prom season. We've done great events at the high school in the past. I think working with Stop DWI Foundation is going to be a really, really great opportunity for our students. And so we look forward to that, and we'll continue to share information as we approach the spring with that award. So as you know, I've been trying to keep you up to date regarding our MTSS training with Education Elements. And we've been working with a gentleman by the name of Blake Dvorak and his team at Elements. And so we are about to get into some in-person work with that at Elements team and our entire MTSS team district-wide with some very specific goals that were established during our last meeting last month. And so as we meet in person here in this room, we are working on dates for late February. We're going to continue to work toward identifying Tier 1 resources, so we're really trying to develop that toolbox as we had discussed. But we also want to take a look at what we can do to have a single screener K-12. So, we have talked about IXL in the past, we have talked about Renaissance Star, but we really want to standardize that process moving forward. We also want to move into, what do our system of supports look like in flexible grouping? And so that also lends to, what does that mean for students across the continuum of services by way of exiting? So that needs some work in identifying our Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3, and what that looks like for our students that have been identified throughout that continuum. And I think if we can standardize that across all of our buildings using standardized toolkit, we're really moving in a great direction K-12. And so that will be a large part of what we do. And of course, our number one goal, I don't want it to sound as though we're just trying to move kids out of the IS. What we're trying to do is to make a massive impact as quickly as possible to help them to learn and grow, to no longer need that support. It's not about taking it away from them prematurely. It's about moving them to a point where they can say they're proficient in a certain standard or area. So we'll continue that work with Ed Elements, and I will keep you informed, of course, along the way. Just your substitute teacher training update. So on the 24th through the 27th, we are scheduled for another substitute teacher orientation. Unfortunately, as it stands today, we don't have anyone signed up for that, but we're hopeful that we will have some individuals sign up. If you are interested and you're out there, please contact either Michelle Cerna or Andrea Ricciardi. Sign up. We'll get you on board. You did have 5 substitute teachers. We did have 5 substitute teachers this evening on the consent agenda. And so little by little, we are increasing the number of substitutes across the district. In alignment with our new teacher seminars and mentor support meetings, Thursday, February 5th, we did have digital portfolios for those who have to create a portfolio in preparation for tenure. And so all of our new teachers had that seminar on the 5th. And I will have the luxury and the privilege of meeting with our mentors here in this room on the 19th, which really is just an opportunity for us to discuss all of our new teachers, any problems, any recurring issues that we're encountering. And it's just a great opportunity to come up with solutions if in fact there are any issues that have to be dealt with. Most often it's a nice celebration of what our new teachers are doing and bringing to the table. And it gives us an opportunity to talk about what our individual mentors who are extremely experienced bring to the table so that those mentors and future mentors can add to their toolbox. Kindergarten registration, this is just a heads up. I know that Mrs. Driscoll is working diligently with her team and also Maria, our registrar, putting together that informational flyer and a QR code to get that information regarding kindergarten registration out there. So just keep your eyes open on the website, keep your eyes open for any Parent Square notifications. We will get that up and running as quickly as possible and start that process and get ready for our incoming kindergarten students. And then finally, it's that time of year where we start to prepare for the Odyssey and the Mine regional tournaments. And so February 28th, 8 a.m. Over at OU BOCES, we've got a potential to have some more world champions in the making participate in the competition over there. So if you have a chance to attend, please do. And we'd like to wish all of our teams the best of luck as they start the process of becoming champions. And that will conclude my report for this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Carter. Okay, moving on. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda. We have Shannon and Billy. Be resolved, the Board of Education approves the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. All right, now I need a motion. Yeah, we don't have old business, right? There's no old business here, so we're just gonna need a motion to approve the policy updates. We have Shannon, Billy. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. Board of Education approves the second reading, renumbering, renaming, and readoptions of the policies as presented. Be it further resolved, the Board of Education, based on the recommendations of the district's NISBA policy consultant, retires the following policies as the content of these policies are either combined with other new policies, restatements of law, or hold insignificant policy guidance. Those are as presented as well. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We need a motion to approve the new business. Billy and Shannon. Be resolved upon the recommendation of the interim superintendent of schools, the Board of Education approves the new business items as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay. Right now we have some board member comments, open agenda items. I had a few notes here, some items to bring up. Earlier in the evening, I talked about some things we'll discuss regarding the superintendent search. Before we jump into that, I wanted to just ask Dr. Carter, moving forward with the UPK, you've provided a lot of feedback, options we have, cost estimates. What direction, if any, do you need from the board at this point in time to keep the planning process moving forward? I know that there's some other things coming from the state that are still in flux.
I appreciate the question. I think the most important thing for us right now is to realize that the maintenance of programs is probably paramount, right? We want to make sure that we continue with our 54 in-house. But we do have to make a decision on potential expansion, even if it's a few seats or, if it's many seats. I think we should probably just have a little bit of a further discussion there. I understand fully that, we're in a tight fiscal situation, if you will. And I also understand that we have nothing more than a proposal that's coming in to support UPK, although I know that there's a very large push for that. And so I'm hopeful that we will get much more money. I do want to be able to get into a lottery situation to pull that, to secure those spots, and to also get that contract signed so that our vendor is fully prepared to offer the services that we would need. And so I just need a little direction, even if we were to have discussion in the very, very near future. That's where we're at. I could pull the lottery for 54, create the wait list for 20, and then make a decision thereafter if you'd like.
In order to just make sure we're staying ahead of things and get the information out there, what is your timeline to get that lottery up and running and to just have that decision made?
So I believe, let me just check to see if I have the dates here, if you don't mind. Last year, we had the lottery on January 28th. So we're just kind of past what we established as a normal mode of operation. We're not that far past. We also ran our registration a little bit later this year. Last year, we kind of ended just before the 3rd of January. So we have 74 this year. Last year, we had 110 applicants. So the applicant pool is a little down. Nonetheless, I think we just want to stay as close to our timelines as possible so that, it's a good collaborative process between us and the vendor or the provider, if you will.
Yeah, I would recommend we maintain what we have right now, the same number of slots, and then, establish a waiting list, and then we really need to wait to see if anything does come from the governor. Understand there's still a cost per student, even though we're getting money. So that would be my recommendation, to kind of maintain where we are and then kind of wait and see.
And you had mentioned that there is a possibility that there might be more funds allocated on a per student basis from the state level. It's an if question, but sorry. When that information comes to us, should we reach the top of that promise? Oh, there's the largest amount that was promised. What does that look like from a per student cost on our responsibility? How much does that reduce it per student cost?
How much does it reduce? So another great question. Right now, just for round figures, we get approximately $5,700 per pupil. And the cost is slightly more than that by way of the contract and proposal. If we were to receive $10,000 per pupil, that would more than cover the proposed cost from the provider as it stands today.
And I have one last question. I'm sorry, I'm driving this. For the provider, what is our timeline to really be able to engage with them at the latest date where they can still provide that service and make sure that they're meeting our need? Should we be able to pull the trigger on that? Should we get more money from the state? And that works in our favor.
So I don't have a date to share with you as to what would be the provider's latest date. But if I may, I would advise that we act as quickly as possible to secure the 50 more. Regarding the additional seats that may be located in her building, if we choose to sign on with that proposal, I'm sure that we can have discussion about how long as a business owner, as a provider, can you wait without filling seats, simply because it's from that aspect. On the private side, of course, it's a business venture. And so I know that individual would prefer to fill those seats as quickly as possible. And if there's any wavering, then those seats may go elsewhere. Seats available. I can work. I can certainly have that conversation.
I appreciate all that feedback. I think that's really helpful to all of us. What does everybody feel about Mr. Bon Jovi's suggestion? Yes, 54 in-house. Create the wait list for, what did you say, 20 more? Is there an initial recommendation possibly?
Yeah. There would be a wait list of 24.
And then see how it shakes out with the state?
I agree with that.
Agreed?
Yep.
Agreed? Okay, great, perfect. Does that give you
It gives perfect
everything you
direction.
need?
I can put together the lottery. We can put together a contract with the provider.
Great,
Present it to you for signatures and approval, and then move forward with our in-house program.
all right, fantastic. And I think it just, goes without saying, if there's any type of resolution that needs to pass, being that we have the monthly meeting here, we have a few weeks, if there's something we need in between to ensure we don't miss deadlines, make sure we keep moving. I'm sure we're all
Sure,
willing to
absolutely.
get a special meeting on the books as needed.
Mhm.
So just make sure we keep moving. So fantastic.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, wonderful, thank you. Moving on to the second item I had noted here to discuss a little bit. I'm going to just turn it over to Billy and Shannon a little bit to maybe give us a little bit of feedback from the meeting you had with BOCES. Give us some insight, see if we have any questions. I did reach out to John to see if he had anything that we needed to ask this evening or discuss, so he's good. And then I think we, have one or two decisions we need to make, so you guys wanna lead us into that, that'll be great.
So, we started off and we met with two people over at Webex, and, I really just kind of talked about our structure, and I know you already addressed the timeline and what our timeline would be. So, at this point, we did have a conversation about a confidential versus non-confidential search. It was recommended and we decided to go that way as far as not doing a confidential search. And the reason for is really so we could include stakeholders within the district. And when you move to a confidential search, typically it's just the board meeting with those candidates. Now, while stakeholders that are involved would, most likely have to, sign an agreement to keep those meetings and interviews private, right? It would open it up, right? So they had already been reached out from candidates, far and near and from wherever. So I think we made the right decision with looking at BOCES.
Yeah, that sounds good. And I know there was, another point that we wanted to make sure we discussed tonight regarding the different rounds. If I'm correct in recalling, there's 3 rounds of interview process, and then the board's role during that process was something that we wanted to discuss a little bit.
Right. So they gave samples as far as what they would recommend for over the course of those 3 interviews. And essentially the first round, it generally is a larger round of stakeholders that's identified, kind of working with the board and so forth. And then the second round would be a little bit smaller. And then the final round would just be the Board of Education. Through that conversation, we both felt and, up for discussion with the rest of the board members, that we should have some level of board representation during each process, whether that is, just simply a presence or an active role. And one of the reasons why we felt this way, and Wayne can jump in, right? But was that sometimes when you move from one interview process to another, a candidate might present differently, and you might miss out on some of those things. Where a candidate might speak about some really good items and processes that they would put in place. If we don't have some level of a constant, we might end up missing that. That might not translate over. So while I fully trust the team that we are engaging with, I do think that at some level that could be something that we make a determination with, whether it's bringing the team in here to discuss with us in a public session or executive session. We could always decide that down the road. Really just allows us to have at least one constant along the whole way. And then it also encompasses the stakeholders, at each level too.
Yeah, it just would help to hear other people's points of view and just be a constant, like that continuity during the interview process. It's the biggest thing we're going to be doing as a board, the most important thing we're going to be doing as a board. And I think we just felt like we should have, somebody should be there, even if it's just, someone listening in and not even being part of asking any questions at that stage, but just, for continuity factors. That's what we were comfortable with.
I agree. Yes, that's a great idea. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
So do I. Yes.
Surely. So yeah, let's follow their lead. I think you mentioned maybe having them come in. I think maybe we can, consider that, maybe have them come here to be part of a conversation to, maybe we have additional questions we want to ask them, or they can talk about whatever else they may feel would be good to put out there. Regarding stakeholder groups, you talked about the group getting whittled down. So that's something that they would help us establish as to the whom's, the when's, and then who should be those pieces throughout the way, right?
Correct. They have like almost like samples of what ideally it could look like, and then you make it work for what, you know, for your population. But yes, they have lots of suggestions about that as we go along the way. And I just want to stress to the community too that these are services that the district is not paying anything additional for this. This is all included in what we already subscribe to for BOCES. So it's wonderful that we're using this as a resource.
Getting our money's worth.
Yeah.
I like it.
Mhm.
Great. So, yeah, I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
We're all in agreement. And if you guys want to continue those conversations and get any feedback from them as to what they feel may be important to bring forward, we'll keep those communications going in between now and the next meeting and, you know, get that on the docket if needed. Great. All right, good. So that covered the conversations with BOCES, UPK. Anything else anybody has for open agenda items?
The only thing that I would ask, we had discussions about the safety plan, is if we could have in the past, we've done a roundtable.
Yes.
We've had like Pizza Rigliano, we've had the police chief, and it was closed for safety reasons, but I think it was just still a good meeting to have and probably do.
I agree. Great.
I'd just like to thank
Yeah.
Trailside Treats. They've always been very good to our district, very generous anytime we ask them for something. So tonight we accepted a donation for the Special Olympics, which is such a fantastic event. I'm looking forward to it. And I just want to thank them for being such a great community partner.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Anything else? Nope. Great. All right. We covered a lot. So we'll just need a motion to move into executive session. Scott and Brett. Be resolved, the Board of Education will enter into executive session with the intent not to reconvene the business portion of the meeting for discussions related to the employment history of a particular person or persons. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you and have a great night.